Yeah, right. Hope I haven't had a chance to ask you yet. How are you feeling about the public? Mhm. Sure. That's great. Sure. 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 Well, and I think that's it. I told Paul. Right. Like I told. I told Paul last week after session.
Yes. I don't know. We'll begin in 1 minute. Call meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. Welcome to your Brookings City Council. And we want to remind both City Council members and members of the public that we're asking all individuals that are attending City Council meetings to please wear a mask and maintain at least 6 feet distance between themselves and others. If you need an extra mask, there's some out there, some really nice masks, so please help yourself to those. They're outside the chamber. And we want to protect everybody that comes to the City Council meetings, both our council members, but also members of the public. We want to stay safe for them. So, okay, City Clerk, please record attendance.
Mayor, in the same room this evening, when I call your name, would you please respond present? Bacon?
Present.
Brink?
Present.
Collins?
Present.
Corbett?
Present.
Niemeyer?
Present.
Tilton Burn?
Present.
Wendell?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Just to remove the executive session from tonight's agenda. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a second on that. Any discussion, council? Please call roll on amending the agenda for tonight.
Corbett?
Aye.
Niemeyer?
Aye.
Tilton Burn?
Aye.
Wendell?
Aye.
Bacon?
Aye.
Brink?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So now I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, please call roll.
Niemeyer?
Aye.
Tilton Burn?
Aye.
Wendell?
Aye.
Bacon?
Aye.
Brink?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Corbett?
Aye. Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Next, under open forums and presentations report, I'd like to ask Dr. Diane Nagy to come up front here, and I'll be right down there. And also we have Matt Rhodes and Lawrence Novotny from the Human Rights Commission.
So normally this would be presented during the award banquet, but during our current state of affairs, we figured we'd present it during one of your meetings. So I'd just like to read off a little piece about the award recipient for this year. The Dorothy T. and Eugene T. Butler Human Rights Award is named after the Butlers in recognition of their lifelong advocacy in human rights issues on the local, regional, national, and international levels. The annual award recognizes significant volunteer efforts on behalf of human rights. This is the 21st annual Butler Award and is given to Dr. Diane Nagy this year. She's being recognized for demonstrating her determined commitment for inclusivity in the city of Brookings for many years. Dr. Nagy is humble, always working behind the scenes to further humanitarian causes within our city and beyond. She keeps planning teams and organizational members mindful of their own missions and keeps events and attendees focused on their shared purpose. She leads with quiet passion and clear vision. She models inclusivity, treating everyone with kindness and speaking with compassion and candor, unafraid to address the tough stuff. Diane's tireless willingness to engage others on issues of human rights is a leavening agent in the dough of our community, stated Phyllis Cole Dye, who along with Nagy and others created the Brookings Interfaith Council in 2010. In 2016, Nagy petitioned the Human Rights Commission to publicly reaffirm the city's commitment to equity and social justice, and then was one of the primary drafters of the resulting City of Brookings Resolution of Inclusivity, which was adopted by the City Council. As over a year with the Brookings Public Schools to promote inclusive programming, this led to the formation of a formal district-level inclusivity committee with representatives from each school and administrative team. In the spring of 2017, Nagy, on behalf of the Brookings Interfaith Council, submitted a successful mini grant to purchase welcome neighbor signs for the community residents. The grant was matched by the HRC, enabling the purchase of 240 signs that are now visible throughout Brookings. Ruth Harper, the 2016 Butler Award recipient, stated that sometimes it is more important to constantly show up and involve others than to offer large donations. Sometimes it is the quiet but insistent voice that is a great resonance for justice. Diane Nagy makes Brookings a more accepting, affirming, humane community.
Dr. Nagy, thank you for all you do for Brookings, and congratulations. Very, very well deserved. And I think Matt wants a picture, so we better, Okay. No, you're fine, Matt. You already talked, you can't shake or hug or anything, so the congratulations and thank you. Forum, anyone can speak to a topic that's not on the agenda tonight. Seeing none, I'll close the public forum. This time, Mr. Johnson, I saw you come in there, so we have our SDSU Student Association report.
I'll stand a little closer this time from the beginning. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Zeb Johnson again, the current Government Affairs Chairperson for SDSU Students Association, and I'm so happy to be back in front of you giving the SA report once again after my brief absence. So first off, happy Hobo Week. It's the best week of the year at SDSU. Even though it looks a little different, our students are excited to participate in the adapted traditions that the Hobo Day Committee has worked so hard on to allow us to celebrate our traditions in a safe manner. Next, at our last SA meeting, we passed legislation encouraging SDSU students to get the flu vaccine this year. Relatedly, the university held its second flu vaccination clinic last Thursday, during which SDSU offered free vaccines to students. Third, in addition to legislation, SA is working to boost student voter turnout through a social media campaign as well as other events on campus. And finally, as our last piece of SA news, at last night's meeting, we concluded our removal proceedings against one of our senators and have since removed them from our body, regrettably so. I will stand by for any questions.
You have any questions? As always,
Thank you for your time.
We had a nice visit yesterday, and I always appreciate those opportunities to visit and get caught up on what's going on.
I do as well. It was great talking to you, Corbett. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. Under contracts and change orders, ask Director to speak to Resolution 20-84.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I just am here to address any questions you may have on the Resolution 20-084, the change order for Bob Sheldon project. This is the first change order for this project and is well within the contingency that was identified in the project budget. Project budget contingency was $300,000. This change order is for $45,000 and change. So, any questions in particular on any of the items or the project in general?
Well, it's nice to have that $300,000 contingency there. That helps a lot. Council entertain a motion to approve Resolution 20-84.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, council comments or questions? And this is great, the way this project keeps rolling along. It's just wonderful. Bonnie,
Great.
please call the roll.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Brink,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Corbett,
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 20-84 is approved. Thank you, Dusty. Next, resolution 20-85, ask Community Development Director and our city attorney to speak to this one.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Resolution 20-085 is a resolution approving a development agreement between the City of Brookings and Lynchpin Corporation, a private development firm. This is for the Armory redevelopment project. This is a project that's been 5 years ago, where we went through a solicitation process to see if there's interest from the private sector to do something different with the Armory. And through a series of submittals and not quite what the city was looking for, we started the process over again, went through letters of interest, requests for qualifications, proposals, and had 2 final submittals, of which the council reviewed and approved Lynchpin Corporation in November of 2019. Since then, we've been working on a development agreement with the city attorney, and then we also hired an attorney out of Sioux Falls that had worked on previous types of development agreements to help provide some assistance, guidance for the city. And we're here before you tonight, asking for your approval on this. A couple of the main points. This, the development agreement looks at it as a 3-phase project, where the first phase is kind of the due diligence period, where they'll need to go through some structural analysis, some hazmat, remediation, work through proper permitting, approvals through historic preservation, the city, building department and such. Phase 2 is the actual redevelopment of the Armory building itself, and Phase 3 is the addition of a hotel and parking garage on the west parking lot, just west of the Armory building. In all total, the approximate private investment into this redevelopment project, $18 million into our downtown district. Some of the key components of the development agreement, as far as from the city's standpoint, from a liability standpoint, we had agreed to invest in repairing the existing roof on the Armory building. And so those costs would be something that would be fronted by the city and would be eligible for TIF reimbursement if that is something that is approved. The developers have asked that we waive any disposal costs at the landfill that are associated with the hazmat abatement process. And then they are seeking, or will be seeking, requesting 2 tax increment financing districts, one for each phase of the project, the Phase 2, which is the Armory renovations, and then Phase 3, which is the hotel and parking garage. And they're 2 standalone projects. Additional points of consideration is they would like to create Business Improvement District number 2 on the hotel portion of the project to help with those costs associated with the parking garage and future maintenance of that. They have requested cooperation from the city and the approval of any alcohol licenses that may be needed for the establishments that are businesses that would be located therein, based upon any applications or licenses that we would be eligible to provide. Then the last 2 items is the transfer of the property would be at $0. And then the final item was more a usage thing, and coordination is depending on how the phasing and construction works, is they would requesting access to the areas on the map that are showed as public parking there west of the Armory to use for construction staging of the Armory renovations. And then when they get to the point where the hotel is under construction and parking ramp, they would request that the south side of 3rd Street along the hotel parking garage be available for construction staging. Those are the key components of the city's obligation with this development agreement, and I would stand for any questions you may have.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve. Second. Okay. Any public comment on this? Applicants want to speak to it or stand by for questions or, okay, you want to speak to it or just stand by? Okay. Any public comments on this? Council comments or questions? Yes, Councilman.
I notice in the list of city obligations, one of the items that's noted is the cost of disposal of hazardous materials and the abatement of the materials at the landfill. I just want to make sure we're not underestimating costs of materials that I think we maybe have all been concerned about we know are in the building. Do we have an estimated cost that we would be absorbing on the disposal and abatement of those hazardous materials?
I don't have those costs available. They may have been provided in that banner engineering study. Essentially, is the cost would be for the disposal at the landfill that we'd normally charge anybody else. As it's a city-owned landfill, we would just not charge them for those disposal fees. I could get those figures to you.
Maybe I just wanted maybe reassurance that we're anticipating this would be more of a typical kind of cost we'd be waiving, not one that could escalate, given that we know there is some hazardous material in that facility we're all concerned about.
So I think the typical things that you'd find in a facility, and based upon some of the usages, is there might be some asbestos, and then just the lead remediation from when it was utilized as a shooting range in the basement areas. Those would be the two primary costs that we'd be concerned of. I wouldn't know offhand exactly what those figures might tally up to.
I visited with Todd about that prior to us committing to this to make sure that we were able to overcome any potential costs. And I believe we were estimating, and Angie might recall, around that $25,000 mark is what we assumed. But Todd said we're well capable to accept just about anything that they should bring to us out there, because we do this for a number of companies, not that we just give it free of charge, but because this is an opportunity to revitalize the downtown. It's something that we can currently encumber. And we can get those exact figures for you.
Thanks. Can I ask one other question?
Please, yeah.
As we think about taking some of the public parking offline to use as a staging setting, do we have a sense of what the time frame might look like? And are we implementing, or do we plan to implement, an alternate parking plan for the?
If you'll give me just a minute, I will.
Okay, one of the applicants is coming up to
I
speak
think
to this.
on page 3 of the actual development agreement, we kind of have laid out kind of a proposed project schedule. Typically with a hotel build like this and parking ramp, you're looking at probably somewhere in the ballpark of at least a 12-month. Those loss of those parking spaces, there isn't a plan at this particular time to replace them elsewhere. There is the 72-hour lot that is just a little bit further to the north. There is public parking directly across the street to the south along Front Street. That is kind of to the west or east side of Capitol Line. The other thing I would like to remind the public is the parking lot out in front of the City County Government Center is a public parking lot and is available to park in. And if you've driven, after 5 o'clock, there's very few cars that ever utilize this parking lot. So it would be available nights, weekends. We do like to see it turn over a little bit during the day so that it's available to citizens that are coming to this facility, but it is a public parking lot. There is also a public parking lot by the Napa building, as well as the one right in front of the activity center. So there is ample public parking spaces downtown, but yes, there will be a loss with this project. Upon completion, the parking ramp garage would be available to the public, and the developers are working on that. They proposed a fee to park in there, but each individual will have to make that choice on their own.
If I might add, Angela Boersma, President and CEO of Winchpin Corporation. As a part of our ongoing process, the goal would always be to make sure that any street closures or interruption of public services be notified appropriately. So we would, as a part of the construction phasing, we'll present to City Council in part of our quarterly updates, a phasing plan, as well as when we anticipate things like parking closures, so that on the city website or through other social media channels, that can be communicated to the public as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Brink?
The approximate dates of the phases, just to give everyone sort of a timeline for how this would go. And it can be very approximate, just wanting to understand the timeline. Related to that, I also was curious, at what point does the deed or the title actually transfer over?
Okay. I'll just quickly kind of run through some of the project schedule milestones. Looking at approximately 3 weeks out is when we'd execute the actual development agreement. We have to get through the referendum period, and then we would execute it. From that day, we're providing about 8 months for the due diligence process. That's basically to go through kind of all their internal analysis of the existing structure, to work through what they may have to design to go through the historic preservation review process, approval process, get any sort of utility issues worked out, relocations, things like that, go through the building permit review process. And so that's all going to take some time. So about 8 months for that. Upon completion, we'd be looking at transferring the armory portion of the property to them within about 30 days upon completion of the due diligence. And then upon transfer of the property, they'd have 30 days to start construction. Construction schedule for phase 2, or for the army portion, is about 12 months. And then, the hotel due diligence will be occurring as well during that process, but, looking at about 20 months from the date of execution of the development agreement, that due diligence for the hotel portion would be completed. And then upon completion of that due diligence, 30-day completion date to transfer the property, and then you'd start construction within 30 days of transferring the property. And then we're providing about an 18-month build out for the actual hotel and parking ramp. So all said, you're probably looking at somewhere in the ballpark of about 2.5 to 4 years from start to finish to complete everything.
Okay. And thank you for that. And then a second question, I just think it might be helpful for the members of the public watching the meeting just to be reminded what the bid district actually means, how that mechanism works for us.
Yes. So a business improvement district, we established one. Currently, we have one in the city of Brookings, and it applies to all hotels that have over, I think it is 25 or 35 hotel rooms. And so as a hotel comes on, they're automatically added to that. And we utilize those funds primarily for the Convention and Visitors Bureau to try and recruit, retain, attract new business to the Brookings community that benefits our hotel industry. The creation of a second business improvement district would be placed on this particular hotel, and so they would actually have 2 business improvement districts. So what that is you pay $2 per night per occupied room. And so in this particular hotel, they would end up paying, customers would pay $4 a night. $2 would go to Business Improvement District 1, and then the second $2 would go to the Business Improvement District number 2, and that would be utilized towards that parking ramp, garage, and then for the maintenance and upkeep of that ramp. And so that ramp, depending on the configuration, could hold upwards to as many as 90 cars available.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike, you've worked on that, and Angie's nodding her head yes. So huge thank you to Lynchpin Corporation. This is really exciting what it's going to do. So thank you, and again, Bonnie, please call the roll.
Bacon,
Aye.
Brink,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Corbett,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
5 is approved. Under, we'll have a first reading. Under first readings, no vote is taken. However, the public can comment, as can council. So turn it again over to Community Development Director Mike Struck.
Thank you, Mayor. 20-023 is an ordinance rezoning 6 residential lots in the Fox Run Edition, all located on the east side of Fox Run Trail. And you can see the area highlighted in yellow on the overhead map for twin home development. And so it includes a combination of single-family zoning, one lot that is actually split zoning between an R2 and an R1D, I think, and the other ones are R2. They're proposing to rezone those 6 lots to R3. R3 provides more favorable setbacks for them. They have a couple of the foundations already in, and they would like to make sure that they keep everything in alignment along that stretch. And so the development review team has reviewed this, and the planning commission reviewed it and recommends approval. I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Any comments, public comments, questions? Council comments? Anybody calling in? Don't want to forget you out there. You have any questions or comments? I guess not. We'll have a public hearing on November 10th. Now, public hearings and second readings. Ask City Clerk to speak to the on-off malt license.
Mayor and City Council members and the audience, the City of Brookings has received an application for an on-off sale malt license for Agua Fresh. They are located at 420 Main Avenue. Sinan Taskin is the owner. He has submitted all required documents for this application. Public hearing and action is required by the local governing body. This malt license would be effective in November 2020 and then subject to an annual renewal. If approved, the application will be forwarded to the State Department of Revenue for final action and issuance of this license.
Okay, thank you. I'd open public hearing at this time. Anyone care to speak to this application? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Council, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Take that as motion and second. Council comments or questions? Okay, Bonnie, please call the roll.
Bacon,
Aye.
Brink,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Corbett,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, on-off sale malt license is approved. Ask the city clerk to continue with resolution 20-86.
Mayor, council members, and audience, the City of Brookings has received a second application from Agua Fresh at 420 Main Avenue for a on-off sale wine license. An operating agreement is required for all wine licenses. This resolution would allow the city manager to enter into the first 5 years of the 10-year agreement, making this license effective through 2025. Public hearing and action is required by the local governing body. This license would be effective through December 31st and then subject to an annual renewal. If approved, this application will be forwarded to the State Department of Revenue for final action and issuance.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on resolution 20-86? Seeing none, close public comment. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Council comments or questions? Okay, Bonnie, please call the roll.
Brink,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Corbett,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Bacon.
Aye.
Resolution 20-86 approved. Now, second reading and action on ordinance 20-22. Ask city manager to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. At the first reading of this item, further discussion was requested on the Public Works reorganization. Therefore, last week, a work session was held to provide further insight of this recommendation by the city manager. Additional information was provided to the public as well as employees per division. to show how there would not be an increase in full-time equivalents within this restructuring. Resources of the American Public Works Association, the International City County Management Association was also provided to further understand the job descriptions. Finally, a list of peer communities in South Dakota and college towns was provided, in which we outlined the organizational structures of each of those communities and how the public works departments are utilized. The information did detail that every community does utilize this position a little differently according to what the need is within the organization and community. I am recommending the restructuring of many departments to develop a public works department. Within the public works department, we could have one director overseeing 3 divisions. The organization would combine the current 3 departments into 3 divisions, as I noted. This move does reduce the number of departments to 11, and over time with transition, the director position would become managers in the engineering and solid waste. Streets, we are recommending it as a manager position right now since it is open. The transition does utilize 2 current vacant positions. Therefore, these are total employees, no additional sales tax or property tax needed, and no impact to the general fund. And any additional funds needed for the salary of the Public Works Director would be augmented by solid waste. The new department would contain the functions of engineering, stormwater, airport, snow removal, mosquito control, street maintenance, fleet, landfill, and refuse collection. More importantly, the reorganization under the Public Works Department creates a more cohesive structure for the operations and infrastructure investment of this community. The combination of departments allows for greater collaboration between divisions that can naturally share resources, communication, and planning. The reorganization, as it's presented, has the potential to create greater efficiencies for this organization. With that said, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions council might have of this request.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Any public comment? Council comments or questions? Councilmember Brink?
This proposal, and please understand there's been a lot of conversations that have happened, a lot of research, a lot of different voices I've heard from on this. I have 5 concerns with this proposal, and I'm going to just briefly outline those for the group. The first is timing. Being in the middle of the pandemic, obviously there's a lot of financial uncertainty for nearly everyone, including the city government, and with all of the change and upheaval that we are experiencing in other parts of our life and in the work that we do here, it seems challenging to me to make a significant change in the structure of the government that future councils and city staff would have to deal with unless it's for a really good reason. And my concern about this is it seems like we're just opportunistically trying to grab at this right now because we have a position open. So timing. Second, efficiency. In my mind, this position brings in an additional layer of management and administration for these departments. And I don't know about you guys, but usually additional administration is not synonymous with increased efficiency for a lot of different walks of life. So one of the things that I see there is that with the Public Works Director potentially not having the same subject matter knowledge of the department heads that we have today, I don't see how their conversations and interactions are going to necessarily lead to increased efficiency and make it better, cheaper, faster. That brings me to the third point, which is really knowledge. And we heard you talk about the background, the educational background and experience that might be ideal in a Public Works Director. And that's a versatile skill set. But with that comes an assumption that he or she might not know how to actually do city engineering or airport management or solid waste. They might not have that particular set of experiences or skill sets. And so to me, this seems like that could triangulate a lot of extra conversations that might eventually lead to you having to resolve disputes differently or kind of be in the middle of some of those types of things too. And I think that that's just maybe extra communication than what might be necessary when you have 3 subject matter experts at the helm of each department. My fourth concern is recruitment, and we are tremendously lucky to have the department heads that we have here in the city of Brookings. And I'm gonna pick on Jackie Lanning as our city engineer, but she's so dedicated and talented and good at her job and capable. And I struggle to understand how we would get the same caliber of a leader for those functions with a greatly reduced pay scale, which would be the part of this restructuring that is supposed to offset the cost of the additional full-time employee. So I feel like that could eventually lead to increased turnover in department head roles, which could, or in future manager roles, which would long-term hurt the organization. And that ultimately brings me back to costs. And I know, I understand the math that we're doing here now, and thinking that this can not be much of a budget hit. But the problem with that assumption is that it's based on some assumptions about future retirements of existing staff. And I do not want existing staff to feel pressured to retire at the time that has been publicly stated that they will do so in order for us to make these budget realities come into fruition. So let's say that the department heads that we have today don't retire for several years. We hire a new public works director at the highest pay scale in the city government, except for the city manager, perhaps. And then we have department heads overlapping with that person for several years. That, to me, would be actually an increased cost. And so I think if we're going to consider this, I would feel a lot more comfortable waiting to do so at such a time as one of those remaining existing department heads chooses to announce their retirement. So I don't want to jump the gun on it ahead of time. So I just wanted to explain my feelings on that.
Okay, anyone else care? Mayor?
Mayor Corbett? Thank you. I just want to say that I actually have some of the same concerns as Councilmember Brink. I do think that timing is one of the things that may not be ideal for this particular switch. I would also prefer to see this change take place in the event that one of our department heads does choose to retire rather than at this time. If we are to make the change, I feel like that would be a bit more appropriate, especially given the budget constraints that Councilmember Brings mentioned. I also, I think one of my biggest concerns is similarly those of recruitment. And I feel that each of the three departments that are currently departments ran by department heads are weighty enough fields that require a certain amount of expertise that really would benefit from having those remain department head positions. I fear that if we change it to department managers or manager roles, then we may be cutting ourselves short in terms of who would apply for those roles. I also fear that we may find ourselves in a situation where we might see more staff turnover. I think that we might be able to recruit some really great talent for those manager roles, allow them to gain some experience where they would then leave the city of Brookings and in pursuits of department head roles in other communities. And I think that maintaining the high caliber and level of expertise that we've seen in several years is extremely important, especially again, maybe picking on the engineering department. We know there's a lot of engineering issues in Brookings, especially as it relates to water. And I would not want us to be in a situation where we don't have the brightest and best serving in those roles for our community.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Niemeyer.
So I guess I'm looking at this this position a little differently. When our finance manager or director that we had before Eric resigned and moved on to another position, it was time to step back and look at that position and what do we want for a finance director? Do we want a finance director that just makes sure that all the numbers are right, or do we want somebody that has a vision to look ahead and be able to make financial recommendations to the manager and to the city council, and be able to analyze how our money is being spent? And so that position was kind of reworked and looked at. I kind of liken it to this public works director. It's like, you know, we can do the same old, and it's worked. We haven't had a problem with that. But maybe we can take a different look at how things get done in the city and maybe become more efficient. These three departments have a lot in common with each other. Engineering and street, obviously, together. Solid waste, there's a lot of engineering involved in that too. Public works directors are, I mean, we're not inventing the wheel here. This is being done in other cities all over the United States. It's not an unusual position. And so, the job description obviously is gonna be a little different than some of the other public works directors. Some of them have utilities, that kind of thing. There's water and sewer. But this public works director is gonna have three departments that have similar capabilities and similar equipment that's worked with. I mean, yes, it would be nice to have an engineer, but maybe we need somebody that is able to look at the management part of these three departments and let the people that know what they're doing work in those departments themselves and have a person above all of them. I mean, this could be a junior city manager from another city that has to be the chief cook and bottle washer in that city and has experienced all three of these different departments already. So I seem to think that this is a step forward in our management style of our departments.
Any other council member? Okay, well, when we first started talking about this, I talked to some of the other mayors, well, we talk often, and they couldn't believe Brookings didn't have a position like this. They said it's kind of an economy of force, if you will, that one person coordinating these instead of having to call each department and ask, can you do this? I'm thinking most recently our snowstorm. That one person could tell engineering, we're going to need 3 people to work from midnight to 3, forestry department, this. And so the other mayors just couldn't believe a town like Brookings didn't have this. So that's why I was quite surprised about it. I understand the concerns others have about, when the hiring and everything and the timing, but I think now is the time, and Councilman Niemeyer is very right on, if you will, about when we hired a CFO versus a finance director. So any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mayor Corbett?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I echo what you're saying, and I don't know how we can have someone effectively supervise 14 different. I think all the supervision and all the training experience that I have can effectively do 5 to 7 people. So if we can break this up a little bit for Paul, so he has a little bit of a break there and manages less people, I just think that would be a good idea.
Up there. Okay, please call.
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Please call the roll.
Collins.
Aye.
Corbett.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
No.
Wendell.
Aye.
Bacon.
Aye.
Brink.
No.
Okay. Moving on. Next is action, second reading and action on ordinance 20-28. Ask city manager to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. November 6th. Last week, Council had the first hearing to extend the current ordinance. Tonight, Council will hold the second hearing. If approved, the existing ordinance will be in place as well into December. The current regulation requires 50% occupancy at restaurants, bars, groceries, casinos, and gyms. At restaurants and bars, there is a requirement of 6 feet between groups of 10 or more, and employees at restaurants, bars, grocery stores, salons, and barbers are required to wear face coverings. When social distancing cannot be achieved, face coverings are required for all indoor businesses and indoor public places. Within the ordinance, there are a number of exceptions noted within the ordinance. And with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have of this recommended extension of the current ordinance. I will note for council that I virtually that would like to speak to this item when the public hearing is open. I believe the first one is Jason Merkley with the hospital.
Let's go ahead.
So moved.
Okay.
So
Second.
moved.
Motion and a second. So, okay, public comment, the virtual, I think we'll jump into that first. I know we had one that was waiting.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through.
Thanks. Good evening, council, mayor, and city staff. This is Jason Merkley, president and CEO of Brookings Health System. And I first want to thank all of you for your leadership in these unprecedented times. Last week, I don't remember who, but someone on council mentioned that you all are certainly you all certainly didn't realize that you were signing up for when you ran for your council seat. But I certainly have to say that in Brookings, we're very thankful for the fact that you did choose to be in that seat, and that you're doing a great job. And so thank you very much for your service during these challenging times. I wish I came to you tonight with a different message than last week, but I'm unfortunately presenting more of the same. In fact, the situation is becoming even more concerning as we look towards trends across our service area and community that lead us to believe that the capacity of our local health system is going to be stretched even further than it is today. Today, we are experiencing significant COVID positive hospitalizations. To be exact, we have 15 positive patients in-house as I speak. And that total is expected to double within the next 2 weeks or so, based on the continued high percent positivity rate we are experiencing across our community. On top of that total, we have other inpatients, surgeries, and procedures that patients need to seek care for at the hospital. And I urge those in need of such services to continue to do so, as delaying those other ailments is only going to make matters worse down the road for those patients. At the present moment, the absolutely incredible healthcare staff and providers at Brookings Health System are able to manage the situation. But this is a day-by-day, hour-by-hour management of beds, staff, equipment, and resources. And believe me when I say we are doing everything that we can to plan for the uncertain future of what lies ahead. But that said, doubling down on what we are seeing today for COVID positive patients, on top of what we typically care for and see in the busy months of October and over in November and December, will more than likely stress the environment and be more than we can handle in the future for an extended period of time at Brookings Hospital. This is why it is absolutely so important to mask up, social distance, limit groups and gatherings, wash your hands, and clean and disinfect areas. And tonight, I'm asking our community, employers, and anyone else who's listening to do everything and anything you can to stop the spread of this virus. It is of the utmost importance we do this right now, not down the road sometime, but right now. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have in regards to this topic or the current situation. Thanks.
Councilman Niemeyer.
Jason, are you having concerns about equipment, supplies? I know we kind of talked about you're going to be stretched pretty thin as far as staff goes. Are we going to be good on getting what is needed to take care of our patients?
At this point in time, we are doing everything we can to certainly scramble and get as much equipment as we possibly can, as much PPE as we possibly can. That's based upon the trends in the future that we see coming down the road. Again, that doubling down, that modeling that's occurring across our healthcare profession. and certainly our area. And so right now we're okay. I don't know if I would say the same thing if all of a sudden we saw double the amount of COVID patients coming through the door.
Jason, this is Patty. I also wanted to know, how is the region doing? Are Sioux Falls and neighboring communities beginning to reach their thresholds as well? Are we even going to be available to help each other out? Because we're worried about taking care of the demands in our own community.
Thanks for the question, Patty. Yes, we are still today able to transfer patients, mainly to Sioux Falls. But they are running up against capacity. They, much like us, are in a day-by-day, hour-by-hour situation. We have an influx of patients coming through our ED, which is mainly where we're seeing most of these patients being hospitalized through. So they're accessing our care through our emergency department, so they are sick. And we transfer out those that, again, are the sickest of the sick, assuming that we can and that Sioux Falls facilities are accepting them.
Jason, this is Joey. Jason?
Yes, Joey.
And I'm just curious to where are some of our patients coming from? Are they coming from other hospitals or anything like that? Or are they just mainly people from here in Brookings?
Most of our patients are coming from the Brookings area or region. Again, most of them we're seeing coming through our emergency department. They're not coming from some of our clinics. Very rarely are we having any direct admits from our clinics, but typically we're seeing a very busy ED on an emergency department on a day-to-day basis. Lots of those admissions are coming through there.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr.? Okay, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Bonnie, was there anyone else online? Okay. I know, Pastor, you wanted to speak? Introduce.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Pastor Pete Grosso. I'm the pastor of the First United Methodist Church here in Brookings. I live in 1353 Fifth Avenue. I'm coming on behalf of our church council and our church leadership to affirm our support for your leadership in the town. We believe that you do have our best interests at heart. We affirm the scriptures that ask us to pray for those who are in leadership, and we want to affirm that we do pray for the leadership that you offer to our town. But we also want to state that it's our conviction that the most loving thing we can do is to encourage you as a council to keep this mandate in place. We believe that masks are one of the essential steps to protecting our community. We would encourage the community to continue with social distancing, to continue to wash hands. I find myself in the amazing place as a pastor for the first time in my life telling congregation members to stay at home because that is the safest place to be. And so we really do believe that you guys are doing a great job. I came across a quote recently from our governor who said, "I'm going to continue to trust South Dakotans to make wise and well-informed decisions for themselves and their families." It's our conviction you are making wise and well-informed decisions, and we would encourage you to keep going.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, anyone else care to speak to ordinance 20-28?
Lee Walker, resident of Brookings. I'm here once again to voice my opposition to the COVID restrictions on business capacities. Before I continue, I have one question I would like answered. When did you establish the thresholds to move between the phases? Was it in July or was it in September?
We'd have to go back and look at that date. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, well, it seems to me that the first shutdown we had was a knee-jerk, we have to do something reaction based on fear, not the facts. The graph I'm referring to here is the Brookings COVID-19 situation, number of confirmed and probable cases by day. You had the shutdown in May, and prior to the shutdown, the first confirmed case, I guess, according to this graph, was around the 6th of, March, not May, March, when then you passed the ordinance on the 23rd of March. According to this graph, cases, at no time in that period had the cases gone over 10 a day. You reopened the city in May 12th. From the period of closing to reopening, the graph shows that the cases did not go up or down, basically flat again, with no more cases per day. Extending out until the 2010 ordinance in July, you still had no days above 10 positive cases per day. After you amended the ordinance to allow businesses to partially reopen, case levels remained flat until the SDSU students came back, which was late August. Meanwhile, numerous events were canceled and much business revenue was lost. And you have heard many accounts of how businesses have either had to close or were hanging by a thread because of these actions. It is apparent to me, according to this data, that the actions have not helped our situation. And now we move to the mask mandate. On October 1st, we had 104 active cases. Today we have 376, more than triple in less than a month. As you may recall, I asked last time if any of the healthcare providers could say if the positive flu tests were being added to the COVID numbers. If anybody got any answer on that yet? Seems like there's no more flu anymore. Everybody's got COVID. You may have seen that prisons have a high rate of infections. Seems to me the only way prisoners can be infected is by the guards that they interact with. Aren't they supposed to be wearing masks? Aren't the vendors and other workers who come to the prison required to wear a mask? If the masks work, why are prisoners getting infected? And now, Avera won't let visitors in to see their relatives, even if they wear masks. If masks work, why can't they? I'm not saying anybody doesn't have to, if they want to wear a mask, you can. All I'm saying is it shouldn't be mandated. Right now, the COVID infection rate in Brookings County is 1.07%. To me, that hardly qualifies as a pandemic. The fatality rate in Brookings County is 0.3%, which means there is a 99.7% chance of survival. You want the math, you have 1,413 positive cases so far. Divide that by 35,000 residents, times that by 100, and you get a 1.07 infection rate. Fatality rate is 4 deaths out of 1,413 positive cases. Divide that by 100, and you get a 0.3% fatality rate. As I have stated before, the thresholds you have set for moving to stage 4 are unobtainable. And it should not be titled Return to New Normal. There is no new normal. That is just a made-up term. Again, I would say to end limitations on businesses or just take no action at all and allow the ordinance to expire. One more note, final note, last meeting, I mentioned that at the back of the Blue Rally, there was a couple city council members who were not wearing masks, but were within 6 feet of each other. Mr. Niemeyer, I commend Mr. Niemeyer for stepping up and admitting he made a mistake and apologizing for it. I commend you, sir. Ms. Bacon, on the other hand, however, didn't seem to care. She did not admit to making a mistake, and she was rather cavalier about it. So I would just like to say to all the people that are watching here to kindly remember that the next time that you vote, next time she decides to run for office. Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak to ordinance 20-0? This is a public hearing. Council members' comments or questions?
Mayor Corbett,
Yes.
this is Patty. I would just like to respond because I don't care, Mr. Walker. Ope had already spoken, and I was with him that day, so I felt he spoke for both of us. My apologies. We both should have been wearing masks that day. I went assuming I was going to stand at my car, not in a crowd of people, and I should have had my mask with me.
Any other council members care to speak to ordinance 20-28?
Mayor Corbett.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you want me to go ahead? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say that I definitely plan on supporting this continuation of these measures tonight. I think that given the situation that we're in, and especially after hearing Jason Merkley's concern about the capacity of our local hospital, I think now is definitely not the time for us to be letting up on some of the standards that we have in place. I think that the ones we have in place now are extremely reasonable, asking that individuals mask, and then also not necessarily closing businesses, but putting some limitations on them in order to help enable social distancing. I think that what we're seeing both locally and regionally is very scary, and I think that we all need to be taking this quite seriously. And I think that the best way that we can do that is to continue with the mandates in place that we currently have. So I plan to support this.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councilman Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor Corbett. More than anything, I want to reinforce the message we heard from Mr. Merkley this evening. We've heard now directly from the Brookings Health System and understand the local impact of COVID-19. I'm not referring to the global impact or the impact in other states or regions or cities. I am referring to the impact that our decisions as a community and as individuals are having on the hospital and the clinics right down the street. These are the medical professionals that you trust with your children, your parents, with your friends and your family, and they are telling us that COVID-19 is serious, that it's in our community. None of us had a goal from the beginning of this to bring the case count down to 0. We know that would be unrealistic, but we do know there are actions that we could take that could slow the spread of the virus in Brookings. Staff and other resources are getting stretched. This includes concerns about access to supplies and the equipment necessary to treat COVID patients. This isn't just impacting Brookings, of course, this is having a regional impact. And we're understanding better now how our health systems throughout the region depend upon one another. And the fact that all of them are feeling this crush right now should give us all some sense for alarm. So if you've been on the fence about wearing a mask, if you've wondered whether or not you should host or attend indoor social gatherings, let what we heard tonight be a very clear and decisive call. If we don't change some of our behaviors and the number of hospitalizations in our community increases at the projected rate, medical professionals in this community will be making some very difficult care decisions very soon. To echo Mr. Merkley's sentiments from last week, this situation is very fragile, and I fear that we are very near a tipping point that he warned us about a week ago. The best time as an individual to act would have been before now, but the second best time to act, make the responsible decisions we're encouraging you to make, would be right now. So commit to wearing a mask when you are indoors and you cannot socially distance. Commit to practicing social distancing when you can. And commit to avoiding attending or hosting indoor social gatherings. We understand that no single behavior is a magic wand, but a multifaceted approach will help slow the spread. We have heard today from all 3 major health systems in our state. We heard from 37 organizations, the leading medical organizations and economic development organizations in our state, the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, the South Dakota State Chamber of Commerce. They launched a campaign and they shared a message with a uniform and expert voice. Mask up South Dakota. So I think it's important that we align with that message, that in Brookings we continue to mask up. And if you've been on the fence about whether or not you want to wear a mask, or you feel like you'd like to wear a mask, but there are some loud folks in our community that make you nervous about wearing a mask in certain public spaces, just know that you are not in the minority. The overwhelming majority of feedback that we received as a council when we were considering a mask mandate were in favor of the mask mandate. They weren't the loudest voices, but they were the most consistent and the greatest number. Also, recent polling in the state of South Dakota indicates that more than 50% of South Dakotans do support a mask mandate. So just know that if you're trying to decide whether or not you should pull on that mask when you're going indoors, you should. If you have an opportunity to socially distance, you should do it. If you're determining whether or not you should host indoor social gatherings with friends or family that don't live in your household, and you can't create social distance in that indoor space, you should reconsider. And we should pass Ordinance 20-028 to extend our existing measures.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brink.
Councilmember Wendell just stated, which might surprise some of you, but the reality is I've said all along, I'm for these behaviors and people being responsible. I just have a different policy preference for how we get there. I think it's important to note that the article that Councilmember Wendell referenced about the entities and agencies who are supporting the Mask Up South Dakota campaign, of course they're encouraging that, but they did draw the line short of, and I quote, "The group is not seeking a mask mandate from government, but is rather calling on South Dakotans to help manage healthcare resources and workforce." Now, it is possible to care about multiple facets of this and multiple aspects of what it means to be a human in this community at this point in time at the same time. We can care about COVID, we can care about our healthcare workers, we can care about education, and we can also still not love the idea of a forced mask mandate. So I know that there are many people out there that think the same way. I would encourage you to behave responsibly to the extent that you possibly can. This is the time, this is the second best time, because it would have been better to do that earlier, as Councilmember Wendell said. If this ordinance tonight were simply the ordinance without the mask mandate, I would be a yes vote tonight. But as I've specified earlier, I'm a no because of the mask mandate.
Okay. Bonnie, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if Daniel is available for a quick question.
Who?
Councilmember Collins, we had reached out to Daniel,
Yes.
and he was only on there if he wanted to speak. So at this point in time, he's let us know that he does not have any comments at this time.
Can he answer a question or no?
He's not on mic, so no.
Daniel Scholl is on the
His mic
go-to meeting.
Okay, he is on then. All right. Dr. Scholl, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I apologize for the confusion.
Okay. Joey, go ahead.
Thank
and ask.
you. Thank you, Dr. Scholl. I was just curious about, in light of everything that's going on, has SDSU decided to move forward with the football game this weekend, or are they going to maybe cancel it now? The numbers we have.
Joey, you might
So
try speak.
that-
Joey, you might try speaking more into the microphone. You are fading in and out.
Yeah, I guess I can't help that. There's something wrong with my computer, so.
I believe the question was whether or not SDSU is considering canceling this weekend's football game. Is that correct? Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Collins, for your question. We are leadership is in very intensive discussion about all of the activities that we have on campus, and the discussion in the community unfolding tonight is part of that entire set of considerations. So I can't tell you yes or no on that specific question, except that we are looking seriously at all of these things, including our special events, perhaps even especially our special events. So another way to look at it is there are no events that are off the table because we have to be able to respond to the facts on the ground as they unfold. Does that answer your question?
Councilmember Collins, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Scholl. Bonnie, please call the roll. Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Bacon.
Aye.
Brink.
No.
Collins.
No.
28 is approved. Now going into other business, calling city manager for a COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. The following issue, Department of Health, other professionals within the community, including the hospital and various clinics that we have here locally. Brookings currently has 376 active cases. The last time I presented this just a few weeks ago, we had approximately 210 active cases, so an increase of about 166. We also had 2 more additional deaths, bringing the total to 4 deaths total here in Brookings. And there have been 1,413 positive cases here in Brookings County. Approximately 1,033 cases have recovered. 6,336 tests have occurred in Brookings County, and South Dakota's 7-day positivity for the state is at 43%. Brookings is at 36%. Brookings County is still in substantial community spread. The state of South Dakota has 11,188 active cases, and across the state, 375 people have died of COVID so far. The city is currently still in phase 3. With the passage of this current ordinance, that'll take us through December, and staff will try to update that specific date when council will have to review all the regulations again. The mask mandate does include all indoor businesses and public places when social distancing cannot be achieved. The threshold report, just for those watching, is available on our website. Additionally, all data is uploaded there as well daily. Masks are still available for the public through the city. To find out how to obtain masks and marketing materials for businesses, residents or businesses can stop by the City County building at the administrative suite or go to our COVID page on the cityofbrookings.org. Finally, we encourage all to continue to do your part. Last week, staff launched the Brookings Love Letter, which is this right here, based on a mural that one of our well-known residents here in the community did. We mailed this to all residents, and we encourage residents to place this in your window as a show of appreciation and community support that together we can do this together. If any community can do it, Brookings can. So we encourage you to continue to do your part, mask up, social distance, and be aware. The only other COVID-related item I'd like to bring up, the city of Brookings did note in collaboration with the economic development and other state programs that there is a South Dakota CARES housing assistance program for individuals here in Brookings that need help with rent assistance or housing assistance. Make sure people are utilizing that resource if you need help. I believe our marketing folks did just post that on our social media site. We're trying to get it out as much as possible. Once again, South Dakota Housing Assistance Program. Thank you.
Thank you. I would call on the
Mayor
assistant.
Corbett,
Yes.
this is Patty. So, but this was a comment I wanted to make earlier when we were asked whether or not we knew the data on flu. And Amy Hockett from the Sanford Clinic let us know that the state health site where you can get the COVID data also lists the data for flu. So if anyone is interested in that, they can go to that site to get that information.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman, sorry, Jake. Assistant City Manager will speak to the City of Brookings progress.
Good evening, mayors and members of the council. I'm excited to bring you the October 2020 progress report. As many of you know, we do have an event here coming up in the next few days. It is Halloween. As staff, we have been putting out messaging to while still being able to enjoy this year's festivities. As you'll see in the PowerPoint before you, there are a number of options from carving and decorating pumpkins, doing some scavenger hunts with members of your household, having a movie night, doing virtual costume contests, and frankly, I'm sure folks are a lot more creative and can find even more ideas than these. We do want to always remember and encourage you to help stop the spread while enjoying the festivities. Disinfect high-touch areas, wash your hands, social distance, wear a mask, and perhaps most importantly, stay home if you're not feeling well. We've had some exciting news recently on the interchange that continues to progress. On October 19th, we hit the significant milestone of releasing the environmental assessment and a subsequent presentation. The presentation describes the purpose of the project, the environmental impacts of the roadway and interchange layout alternatives. It provides a recommended alternative and shows intersection improvements on 22nd Avenue. There are a number of other resources available, including the Section 4F property and de minimis impact memo. That mostly relates to the bike trail. It talks about how the temporary impacts will be to the bike trail. It involves restricted use and detours. You'll notice the submit a comment button there. We would encourage you to do so by November 19th to make your voice heard on any feedback you may have on this project. As far as next steps go, the design work continues. There's been a lot of praise and support of our city engineer, Jackie Lanning, tonight, and she is certainly working diligently and doing a fantastic job on this project. As we get into the month of November, they are going to continue to have landowner meetings regarding right-of-way. We'll have the 60% design review cost estimate as well. As folks will remember, it was just September when we were at 30%, so the project is certainly progressing quickly at this point. From a higher level standpoint, we'll be looking to bid the project in September of 2021, and then construction of the actual interchange is planned for 2022 into 2023. Bob Sheldon renovation, we had heard the change order earlier today from our Parks Director, Dusty. So far, there's been significant progress made. Unfortunately, there's some white stuff that's covering up, so we can't see all the beautiful synthetic turf and things that are out there. But to date, we have the synthetic turf in, the outfield sod has been put in, we have the irrigation systems, fencing, and stormwater improvements. They are continuing to work in terms of installing the grandstands. They are paving the parking lot this year and installing those stormwater permeable pavers that will help with stormwater flow in the area. We do expect substantial completion of this project in November of 2020, yet this upcoming month. The final work will be done in spring of 2021 to include minor dirt work, seeding, and punch list items. Once we get into that spring season, staff will put together ribbon cutting as well as other tours and public engagement opportunities to enjoy this wonderful facility that we're all excited to bring back on board for the community of Brookings. We have the Brookings Marathon. It was held on September 12th. It was rescheduled from May. This is a Boston Marathon qualifying event, which is quite special. We did originally have over 300 registrants, but we did end up with 119 participants. We did include some COVID safety measures to include staggered intervals. Another change for this year was we included the Dakota Nature Park, and there was significant positive feedback in terms of the COVID safety protocols, as well as including the nature park to show off another great amenity for this community. I did include the fastest time was about 2 hours and 24 minutes, which is astounding to me as a non-runner. Mr. Wendell, maybe that was your time. On October 14th, the Activity Center did reopen. The hours are 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they've also resumed 60-plus dining from 11:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as well. I do want to reiterate they have included a number of COVID-19 safety protocols to include social distancing and masks, hand sanitizer, no coffee or snacks, sanitizing of chairs and high-touch areas regularly. Moriarty Park Pond and Drainage. This is a project that has taken place over the course of this summer. It is substantially complete at this point. As a recap, this involved storm sewer connections in that area, but the main attraction is that dry pond that you see there pictured in the center. There's a number of benefits of this project. It reduces the downflow streams, which are primarily in the Windermere neighborhood. It reduces the overland water flow between the houses on 17th Avenue. And then we do get the benefit of that dry pond, which is a green infrastructure improvement. We're improving our water quality through infiltration, which reduces pollution as well as sedimentation. 20th Street South, this is a fantastic drone picture that shows the progress of that project there. It is substantially complete as well. In full disclosure, the completion was originally October 2020 when I put this slide together, but again, we've had some weather that pushed us back a little bit there. And at current, they are finalizing the punch list. As a recap, this was a 2-year project, so we finished it this year. It actually started last year. It is on 20th Street South from Main Avenue all the way west to Rio Grande. It involved road reconstruction, storm sewer improvements, utility upgrades, and streetlights, as well as that shared youth path that you can see pictured here. Great project and multi-year to put behind us. Our annual overlay project is also underway. Again, was anticipated to be finished up this month, but again, weather pushed us back just a week or two to finish yet this year. We had a number of streets that we were doing. In the lower left, it pictures and shows all of those. Thus far, we've completed 2nd Street, 10th Street, West 7th Ave, as well as Yorkshire. The only one is Faculty Drive for the rest of this year's project. Concrete maintenance is also underway. A number of those projects have been completed there within. There is some to go, and it is anticipated to be completed yet this month as well. Swiftel Center has continued to host events as safely as possibly during COVID-19. All of the events that they have are hosted in accordance with the Swiftel Center's health safety program, which is available on their website for more information. Some of the events that they've held as of late were the Poker Run in September, had over 700 registered riders. The South Dakota Pink Ladies Dart Tournament that's pictured here on your screen was a 3-day event and had over 400 participants. This year, the Swiftel Center is making a little bit of a change. They would typically do your Tough Enough to Wear Pink shirts to benefit breast cancer. Given COVID-19 and different circumstances, they're actually going to partner with the Brookings Health system and promote online donations to benefit that cause as opposed to doing t-shirts this year. The last item is a bit of a follow-up. As some may recall, the city of Brookings purchased our first hybrid police squads, and we've now had those in action for a little bit. The early results have been quite impressive. In some cases, we've seen an increase of 300% in our miles per gallon in terms of fuel economy. Our standard squad averages in that 8 to 10 range. These hybrid squads are in that 20 to 24 range. One of the things I would note there is that we see the greatest increase in efficiency during idling time. These vehicles actually shut off if they're not needing the power-to-power electronics and different devices in the squad. So we're seeing the significant savings there. The vehicle only turns back on when it needs to power air conditioner, heater, or potentially some of the equipment in the squad itself. With that being said, these are great results, but as staff, we're always taking a comprehensive view, so fuel efficiency is certainly a significant part of the equation. But we'll also want to monitor the maintenance need and the overall performance of these vehicles going forward. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Necessarily have a question, and instead I have a comment to make. I think in the midst of a pretty remarkable year that we're living through, I want to commend staff for really pushing certain important projects and initiatives forward. And I think there are certain strategic projects that we came into the spring and summer really fearing would be halted in their tracks. And I think about the Bob Sheldon project and the Armory project now that we're able to move forward on. I think those are the types of projects that have have been able to advance because staff have remained dedicated. But I also think perhaps they're more important now than ever. They're an investment in public works, and in particular, when we can rely on local vendors and our local workforce to do meaningful projects that are necessary, that we pre-budgeted for, that we're able to pull off in this time. I commend staff for keeping the projects forward, and I think it's reassuring to see those types of developments continue to move forward in our community in an unprecedented year, and I think it's a good continued investment in our community. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Council members, topics for future discussion. Our next meeting is November 10th. We'll have an update by our city engineer, Jackie Lanning, on the 70% of the build grant, which Mr. Meshke already talked about. Our CFO will speak to the third quarter report, and then we'll have on ordinance 20-23, rezoning in Fox Run Addition. That's just south of 20th Street South and east of Fox Run Trail. And then we'll have a bid award for the landfill crop land lease. It's 120 acres. Any other topics?
Mr. Mayor, can I
Councilman Wendell.
ask for that's not related to a future topic? I had meant to note this earlier, but I think it's important for some small business owners in our community. Some of you might remember that the governor announced a $400 million grant program earlier this month that would support small businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. The original window has closed, and so if you've not been following along, you might have thought you missed the window. There were some initial thresholds put in place in terms of revenue loss related to COVID-19. They've not had the participation they might have anticipated in that program, and so the window has been extended now through the end of this week, and some of those thresholds have been lowered. And so if you were a small business owner in the community that might have thought for whatever reason you were not eligible for some of that $400 million in federal funding that's available to small business owners, you may still be eligible. I know there's information on a variety of state sites, but in particular, covid.sd.gov has links. So I would just encourage you as a small business owner, even if you already looked in on the program right after it opened, some things may have changed with the expectations and you may now be eligible.
Great, thank you for bringing that. Sure, you guys let me know if you have some. Okay, at this time I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Good,
Aye.
good night.
What's that? Yeah, they're kind of cool. I know what they look like because Paul's wearing them.